Interesting, because I think there are people that literally from primary school have always felt in that state of heightened anxiety. And to them, that is their norm, so they don't even recognize that this is an issue. And there are so many people out there that live with an anxiety disorder,
Hmm.
which is not even diagnosed. And if had they gone to the GP and told the GP how they were feeling, the fact that they weren't sleeping, etc., they could actually meet the diagnostic criteria. So, I mean, I know a lot of people, some in my family, who work, and then the weekend comes along, they drink, and then
Hmm.
their body relaxes and they think that's coming back to balance. But in reality, over time, our immune system is going to be affected just because of partly the overproduction of adrenaline.
Yeah.
And I find it so sad when you hear about people that have worked hard their whole lives, often head teachers. I've heard our old head teacher in my kids' primary school. She died shortly after her retirement, which is very sad. And I started looking into this, and I realized in the education sector that a lot of people work so hard, their bodies are used to that adrenaline, and then they stop. And in some ways, the adrenaline has sort of propped up their immune system. But when they
Hmm.
stop, the adrenaline stops, they can get quite ill. And it's the same with holidays. Your body stops, the adrenaline stops, and then you feel ill. But what I've also realized in the work that I do is that people are not really generally in tune with their bodies. And I did some work in a school once, and I thought, oh, I better use a quote from a well-known book. So I found this quote from The Dubliners, which is written by James Joyce, and he describes this character called Mr. Duffy, and he says he lives at a little distance from his body. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting because we all obviously have a body. Some of us are aware of it, but we don't really inhabit our body. We inhabit our heads. And our heads are chattering away at us all the time.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of research that's telling us how profoundly beneficial it is to give attention more to our sensing mode. We need to find ways and techniques to find ourselves more in our bodies. And that could be as simple as in the morning having a routine where you say, how am I today? So I'll to put you on the spot, Angela. If I said to you, how are you? How would you respond?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask that because I'm always so literal. And I genuinely am one of those people, if you go into a shop and they go, hey, how you doing? I literally stop and actually answer the question.
Well, then you are very rare, and you've
It's,
identified that as well. You're
yeah,
rare, aren't you?
yeah, I am quite literal. But yeah, today it's a beautiful sunny day. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty energized, but I'm also a little bit anxious because there's an awful lot of COVID going around my kids'
Yeah.
schools, and we've only just had COVID as a family about 3 weeks ago. So it's kind of in the back of my head. So I'm doing not too bad. If you said a scale out of 10, I'm probably running at about an 8 today.
Well, this is, and we didn't even rehearse this, did we?
No,
But I
no.
mean, the reason I asked you that is because most people say, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? And as you know, I was working with some managers yesterday, and I said to
Mhm.
them, how do you feel about asking the people you manage to score themselves on a scale of 1 to 10? And actually, mostly they were not all very comfortable with that. But I said to them, okay, let me ask you this question. And there was one of the managers, and I'd said to him, oh, what a lovely day it is outside. I had a lovely walk to work. And he said, oh, is it sunny? I hadn't noticed. I said, well, did you not walk to work? Yeah, I did. So some people are just not in the present moment, really. And they're not in tune. So I would invite people to identify their stresses by first of all sort of tuning in to themselves and waking up and saying, how am I? How's my mental health? Am I hydrated? All those other well-being sort of markers, because we can't start to sort of fix things until we know what's wrong. And
Yeah.
I use this sort of term called stress signature. And that is unique to all of us. And that is your sign that things might be too much and your body and your mind are telling you. I mean, do you have any idea what your stress signature might be? I mean,
Not
mine is getting headaches. So it's something we're not all,
Yeah,
it's
we're all
not at the tip of
different.
our tongue.
Yeah, I'd say my fuse is a little bit shorter. I tend to snap more,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
And that's really common. So emotional snapping is the most common stress signature. And the people you live with will maybe know it more than you sometimes, because
Yeah.
it will be them. But my son, for example, his stress signature is he gets a sore tummy, which actually is irritable bowel syndrome. And I think that's because your body is diverting the energy away from digestion because it's focusing on
Mhm.
survival. He's had a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder. So your signature might be tension, it might be headaches. So that's the way that you can start to notice, am I stressed?
And do you think maybe therefore it'd be quite helpful to have 10-15 minutes a day, maybe just to kind of bookend a period of time each day, maybe at a regular time, maybe at midday every day, or maybe, as you say, first thing in the morning, where you can say, right, this is my 10-15 minutes for me. This is not exercise or anything like that. This is me without my phone, without my computer. I'm just going to stand or sit near a window, or and look outside, or even go outside, just to listen, to be looking at nature, just to let your mind go. Is that quite a
Yeah,
good thing, I guess? Because then when you
yeah,
give yourself permission to have that 10-15 minutes, you start to think about more how you feel,
yeah.
and therefore check in with yourself in terms of stressful. How am I feeling? How am I standing too tall? Am I, is there tension in my shoulders?
Mm,
Are my brows furrowed? You start to notice how physically you are, and then hopefully more emotionally and mentally as well. Is that quite a good
yeah.
idea, do you think, to encourage people to do that if they can every day?
Yeah, and that absolutely right. I mean, there's even something which is called mindfulness, which is a technique. Some people think, oh, that's not me. I can't sort of, I can't, don't do meditation. But if you think about it, it's just as simple as checking in with yourself. And the thing is, we live in this world, where our phones are constantly in our hands. We need to allow ourselves that switch off time. We need to be quite strict with ourselves sometimes and make sure that we allow ourselves that recovery. This is the thing about stress and countering stress, is you need to build in a way to recover and to get your alarm reaction turned off, because your body, when it prepares to sort of say run away or fight a threat, if it actually does fight that threat and does run or whatever, then it's using that energy that it's prepared for. But if we're not using that preparedness, we're kind of effectively stewing in our own juices, and our body automatically switches off the alarm reaction once we've used that energy. But if you're not using it, it doesn't automatically switch it off. So we need to choose whatever works for us. Maybe that's focusing on our breath. Maybe that's going for a walk in nature. But we just need to build it into our diaries, because our lives are so busy. And if we don't build it into our diaries, it's not going to happen.
No, as you made a point there that made me think about what happens in the body with this fight and flight mode. So in terms of nutrition, you're right. If it's something like stress that is the trigger, the body does something called gluconeogenesis, which means it makes new sugar. So it starts to release sugar from things like your liver, your muscles, etc. But if you identified there, what happens if you are actually quite sedentary and you're just sitting at your desk, and you've just had that incoming email that has made your stress levels go up, or an awkward phone call, or whatever it is, and what do? You're just kind of internalizing it, but actually
Yeah.
inside your body, this gluconeogenesis releasing more sugar. And basically, if you're not then burning off the sugar that you
Mm,
identified there,
mm.
it goes on as weight gain,
Yeah.
and particularly around the abdominal area. And that's what happens with people, high stress environment as well. And we talked earlier on about cortisol, and with an increased cortisol also increases fat mass around the tummy area as well. So it's not just from a mental health perspective, it's also from a weight management perspective. If you are struggling with your weight, think, it isn't as simple. We've got podcast episodes on this, have a look if you don't believe me, but we've got plenty on it, that weight management is not just about calories in, calories
Yeah.
out. A
Your
lot of it has to
body's
do with stress.
Yeah, because your body speaks your mind. That's my favorite quote to summarize the work I do. You know, this is not something that is just in your mind, you can just forget about it. It comes out in your body, it comes out in your behavior, your feelings, your thoughts. It's all connected.
Yeah, and it's therefore important, not just healthy mind but healthy body,
Yeah.
that we just need to take time out. We need to spend at least those 10-15 minutes, whether it is just walking in nature in the garden, just to the end of the road, whatever it is, you know, nature ideally. And if people struggle with their sleep, because we talked about sleep at the start there, didn't we, in terms of waking through the night, stress and anxiety can either make people can either find it difficult to get to sleep at the start of the night or wake through the night. And if that is you, you know, if you can find that window, that 15 minutes, whatever it is, preferably in the morning as well, you know, because
Yeah.
it's the light in the morning that resets your circadian rhythm, which is that 24-hour clock that we have, that dictates, you know, the order and the function of all of our organs, and sets us up for the day. So we find that we sleep better when we prioritize activity in the morning, particularly daylight. So
Mm.
if people are still working from home, that does mean, you know, find the opportunity to, instead of your commute, go outside just for 15 minutes, and it will pay dividends. You'll find that you will sleep better that night, your stress levels are lower, and your sleep is less likely to be interrupted.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of techniques that help for sure.